Hi, I'm the Michael Myers fanatic, and I'm here today to review the 2008 documentary entitled The Death of Andy Kaufman. This documentary explores the possibility that Andy might in fact still be alive. I have to say that I really enjoyed the documentary. It was very well done. It was done by a director named Christopher Maloney. The documentary opens up with Andy Kaufman's name on the screen, and it shows you that he was born in 1949 and that he died 1984. And it shows Andy with this group of people, and they're singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm. And I have to admit, when I saw that part was hilarious. Because I'm like, this guy is really strange. He has a bunch of grown men and women up on stage singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm. I don't care who you are. That's hilarious. It was really funny. If a grown man can get other grown-ups to sing a children's song. It has Christopher Maloney in the background, and he's basically telling you about Andy's life. If you don't know, Andy Kaufman was born in Great Neck, New York. He was somebody that loved to play pranks on people, and they considered him to be a comedian even though he didn't consider himself to be one. He would always refer to himself as a song and dance man. They don't really go into too much detail about his life with this particular documentary. They mostly talk about his death, and I found that really intriguing. Andy Kaufman allegedly told people, including Bob Zamuda, who was his best friend, that he wanted to fake his own death, and if he could do that, that he would return 20 years later, which would have been in 2004. I read a long time ago on Wikipedia that in 2004, on the 20th anniversary of his death, they actually threw a party for him, the friends that were still alive, and he never showed up. So there you have it. It also says that Andy Kaufman died in Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in West Hollywood, California. And then Christopher Maloney basically tells you that Andy registered under this fictitious name or alias called Nathan McCoy. Andy was 35 years old at the time of his death. Another rumor was that Andy allegedly told people that he was born in 1937 because he wanted to write a movie in 1980 called The Tony Clifton Story. And it was supposed to star Andy Kaufman as Tony Clifton, and Andy would also play himself. The movie was never actually filmed. All that exists is a screenplay. And in the screenplay, according to Christopher Maloney, at the end of the film, there is a scene where Tony Clifton dies of lung cancer at the age of 47. He dies in Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. 4 years later, Andy Kaufman would die of that same condition. He died in Cedars-Sinai Hospital of lung cancer. The theory is that Nathan McCoy was doubling for Andy Kaufman. A common misconception is that Andy never smoked, and that's not true, because according to his brother Michael Kaufman, Andy smoked when he was in high school. We can get that out of the way right now because he actually did smoke at one time. As I said, Andy was basically a prankster that got his jollies off of getting a reaction out of people, whether it was a positive reaction or a negative reaction. He just liked to piss people off. That was his thing. And I don't think that he wanted to hurt anybody. It's just Andy being Andy. That's what made him who he was. He would often do these skits as Foreign Man, where he claimed to be from the island of Caspiar. He would do this Elvis Presley thing, and he would do this wrestling gimmick where he would be a heel and he would insult women. Christopher Maloney goes on this epic journey to prove or disprove that Andy Kaufman is indeed alive. And he goes to New Mexico and all these other places, and allegedly people are saying that they've seen Andy in June of 1984. This one guy said he was on the elevator with Andy, and he told Andy that he was like, "You look just like that dude from Taxi." And the guy replies, "I've never heard of Andy Kaufman a day in my life." And he reportedly and allegedly runs off of the elevator. Some people say that Andy was a recluse, meaning he's like in hiding, he doesn't really go anywhere. Some people want to say that he lived with homeless people and he was living on the streets. Allegedly, this guy comes up to him while he's on the streets, and the guy says to him, "You know, you look just like that guy Andy." And Andy allegedly replies, "My name's Eric." And when the guy tells him that he looks like Andy Kaufman, Andy allegedly throws a fit. So you see, this documentary was very interesting because it has like all these alleged sightings of Andy. I really truly enjoyed the documentary. If you're an Andy Kaufman fan, I recommend it. As the documentary goes on, Christopher Maloney starts talking to Andy's brother Michael, and Michael tells him that Andy's not alive, that he did indeed die. And Christopher says that he believes Michael. And I'm gonna go with Christopher. Even though Andy was this big prankster, I don't understand why he would go through all this trouble just to trick people. Like, what would be the point of all this? Sure, you're gonna be like, well, Andy wanted to pull off the world's biggest prank. I get that. But what purpose would this serve? Are you telling me that he's gonna go live as a recluse for 20 years and then come back and be like, "Here I am"? I mean, don't get me wrong, he would get quite a reaction. He really would. But at the same time, it would be pointless. Because if he showed up 20 years later and he's like, "Here I am," then his fans would be like, "Oh, okay, there you are. Well, great. Now what?" Because eventually people would just stop talking about it. So it would have been for nothing. In the documentary, it also talks about how he got kicked off of Saturday Night Live, and they think that that's what contributed to the progression of his cancer. Because they say that when you're upset about things, it increases the speed of the cancer or something like that. I don't really understand how it fully works. But as I said, it's a really good documentary. I'm not gonna sit here and try and give you BS about how I was some huge Andy Kaufman fan. I had never even heard of the guy. I became an Andy Kaufman fan sometime in 2006 because I saw the movie Man on the Moon. At first, when I saw that movie, I couldn't really get into it. But then I watched it a second time and I was like, this is a really good movie. And I remember in 2009, I tried to look up some evidence to see if he was still alive. I know the movie Man on the Moon makes the suggestion that he's still alive because he had a character named Tony Clifton, and Tony was played by Andy and by Bob Zmuda. And in the movie Man on the Moon, the camera allegedly pans to Bob Zmuda, alluding to the fact that the guy on stage dressed as Tony is really Andy. My favorite thing that Andy did would probably be Tony Clifton. I want to also say that the documentary shows Chris Maloney walking around the Beth David Cemetery in Elmont, New York, on Long Island. It's basically a Jewish cemetery. Andy Kaufman was Jewish, for those who don't know. He was a great entertainer, and he is my inspiration today. He's the reason I'm on YouTube. You know, he was a lot of that inspiration for me to get into fake feuds with my friends. That all came from Andy. Andy got exactly what he wanted, because we're questioning reality right now. He wanted you to question what was real and what wasn't. And look at what I'm doing right now. I'm questioning whether or not he's even dead, just like thousands of other fans. This is exactly what he wanted. He wanted us to be sitting there talking about it. And then in November of 2013, this lady approaches the stage at a comedy club for the Andy Kaufman Awards, claiming to be his daughter. See, this is what I'm saying. This is what Andy wanted, because he got to mess with us one last time from beyond the grave. A fan said it best when he said that Andy Kaufman messed with the fabric of reality itself. And to me, he was the only person that could ever do that, because his fans refuse to believe that he's dead. So if you can do that, that's a hell of a trick. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say it's not. You know? Andy was like a magician that spent his whole life doing magic tricks, so when he finally really disappeared, everyone thought it was just another trick, and that eventually he would reveal himself. But it never happened. They said it best in the documentary when they said that Andy Kaufman made every person that ever inspired him part of his act. And then he ended up making us part of his act. His whole life was just one big stage, and he pulled each of us into it, whether we wanted to be in it or not. If Andy Kaufman is alive, I say this: let him be. Leave him be. If he wants to be left alone, leave him alone. Stop looking for him. And if he's dead, I say this: give his family some peace. Stop interviewing them, because you gotta think about it this way. If that were your brother that you lost, or your son, or whatever, you would want people to give you peace. So in turn, we have to show that same respect. Rest in peace, Andrew Jeffrey Kaufman. I'm the Michael Myers fanatic. You are my inspiration, and I approve this message. And I'm sure your family would do the same. Thank you.